Okay, Brian, on your mark, we're going to get this show started.
Let's do it. Let's go.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining the weekly roadmap. Today is Friday, February 6th. My name is Maria Elena James. I'm your executive producer of the weekly roadmap, and your call leader, Brian Hale, is on the call with us now. So he's going to get started with the market update as soon as I get done with just a few reminders. And we have something very exciting for all of our Explorer members. If you're an Explorer member, pay attention. We have something really exciting for you this morning. So, on the next slide, the order of this call, if you're brand new to the call, thank you for joining us. I'm going to go over a couple agenda items. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Weekly Roadmap. If you're brand new, I'm going to remind you, as always, download the app today so that you can stay in touch with everything. I'm going to remind you that we're transitioning from Zoom to Roam and tell you a little bit about Roam. And then, of course, Brian's going to tell you a little bit about our upcoming guest speakers. We have quite the lineup, and we are actually booking through at this point, I think May going into June. So it's super, super exciting. Brian's going to go over the
Everybody
market
wants to
update.
be a participant in the weekly roadmap. I can tell you that. We had 47 speakers last year. We have people piling up to get in. So we're excited.
Yeah. And about that, if you know someone or you really want to see someone on this platform on Friday mornings here with us as guest speakers, shoot us a note. Let us know, hey, this is a great speaker and or we would like to see this person, right, Brian? So we
Yes.
always want feedback from you guys as well. Okay, so then of course we have our guest speaker, return guest speaker, the lovely Cindy Ertman. She's going to be with us this morning. So please get your pen, paper, pencil, write notes on all of this session today. Okay, on the next slide, I'm just going to again tell you a little bit about Weekly Roadmap. If you are brand new, what is Weekly Roadmap? What did I just sign up for? This is all about community, the speakers that we bring. We brought 47 unique speakers in 2025 to you, guest speakers that are hard to find, hard to get to. They are here on the Weekly Roadmap sharing their strategies and tips and tactics and what is making them successful. For what reason? To be able to make you successful. We're driving you to success with all of these things, the content, the newsletter, the coaching via these calls. And of course, how do you stay in touch? Via the app is probably the best way. But of course, Weekly Roadmap has a desktop version that you can log into as well.
Sorry, your slide guy was looking at something else. Sorry.
That's okay. So we are all here in Zoom, and we've been here in Zoom since 2024. We are moving this year, sometime this year, no date yet. We're moving to a platform called Roam. We're going to keep you guys up to date on all of this. Roam is going to join us next week to talk a little bit more about their platform, their experience, the clean, modern interface that they have so that we can all meet and chat. As a matter of fact, some of you guys are already on Roam because we know that from what you've told us. So good job on that. You're already starting to explore that platform on your own. So Roam, Roam, you can find them online, but we're going to bring you Roam to these calls soon here in 2026. Okay, so this past week, or this past Tuesday rather, I had the How Members Win on Weekly Roadmap. Some of you joined me on that call. I encourage you all to go onto the community site and or the app, find the How Members Win on Weekly Roadmap space, and then click on RSVP to any month that you want to join me. It's the first Tuesday of the month. The intention of this is me letting you know how members are winning, what they're doing in the community, what they're downloading, how they're using the deck, how they're using the recordings, how they're using the content that we build in order for them to win. We do not expect anybody on this call to take everything from what we're teaching, what Brian is talking about, market update, and learn everything all in 1 hour. But if you learn one thing that gets you more loans today, this weekend, next week, you're winning that way. So join me on those
By
calls.
the way, let me just add, the average commission in the mortgage business today, if you got one more loan this year out of something that you learn on the weekly roadmap, in truth, it would pay for your Navigator subscription for the next couple of years. And it's hard for me to imagine, even today, with Cindy's conversation, you wouldn't get that, but you should think about that.
Yeah, good point. Excellent point. All right, so on the next slide, again, we have a lot of great speakers. This particular week, we have two slides of guest speakers that we are going to bring onto the weekly roadmap. And I'm going to let Brian talk about just a couple of them here at this point.
Yeah, look, I just want to emphasize a couple things. First of all, Cindy, I can't thank her enough. She's a returning champion. I can tell just by the number of folks that have tuned in today for the live session. Cindy has a lot of content and value, and she's a fabulous coach in the mortgage business. And I always love coaches who are also really successful originators in our industry. And Cindy clearly fits that bill. Next week, we're going to have Shane Erskine, maybe a name you may not know. He and his brother Josh founded a company called One Trust Home Loans. They're actually based out of San Juan, Puerto Rico, but they originate across the United States. And they've been a client of mine on the consulting side for over 5 years. They are doing some incredible work with AI. And we had Steve Brown on a couple of weeks ago. We had Sue on a week or two ago talking about agentic AI and the AI process in mortgage. OneTrust and Shane, who is the president, co-founder, COO, and really chief technologist thinker, in vision, the vision guy, is going to come on to talk about how they're using AI to make their originators more productive. And you're going to hear a lot more about this from me and from us this year around a concept that I've launched. I went out and bought a URL. I'm not going to give you the full URL, but this concept of being a superhuman LO. And I'll begin to put some definition around that. We're building content in the back to support this, but a little bit about what Shane is doing. You're going to want to be on that session to understand how originators are utilizing AI to be more productive, more effective. And here's the hint, folks. You can either become a superhuman LO or you can compete with those who do. I'm telling you, you want to be the first, not the last, right, in this process. We're going to bring you a lot more content in the community site, on our website. We're about to launch a new standalone weekly roadmap website. We're working on that in the background as well. All this ties in. Michelle has been on before as well, brings an immense amount of value. Dave Savage, I don't really have to give you much content around that. Nicole Ruth is coming on March 13th. Amir Syed on the 20th. We've got Ivy Zellman, maybe the leading housing analyst on Wall Street. She's been named actually the leading analyst on Wall Street 3 different times in her career. Ivy's going to come on and give you kind of a first quarter update, what's going on in the housing market, what to think about interest rates. Then we have Brent Jones. You might think, okay, why have we got an appraiser on? Well, first of all, he's not just an appraiser. He runs a big AMC out of Las Vegas, but Brent trains AMCs, realtors, originators, mortgage companies all over the country. And there are a ton of emerging issues in appraisal that you have to know as an originator. So we brought Brent back. He's a returning champion as well. Ivy's been on before. Nicole's been on before. Amir's been on. A lot of these folks are coming back to do a refresh of what's going on. We're really excited about our lineup. This is not the full lineup, by the way. We'll be back with more names and exciting pieces as we go forward. Maria,
Excellent.
back to you.
Yes. The only other thing I would add, guys, if you don't know any of these folks, you're like, who's that? Look them up and you'll see all the value that they're going to bring. You see their expertise. Um, and please join us on those calls. Okay, so huge update. Brian and I are super excited to announce to our Explorer members that as of today, as soon as I go offline here, I am going to double check your access. I think you should all have access now as of last night. Explorer members now have access to these spaces, the Friday recordings, the guest speaker videos, and the short videos. So as soon as the recording is available on Fridays, it will be in those spaces. Go find those spaces, Friday
On the
recordings,
community
guest
site,
speakers on
right?
the community site and or on your app. And you will be able to click on the view recording, listen to recording. You can listen to it from anywhere from your car, like podcast style. Okay, so now you will have access to those spaces. So go and visit those spaces after, or actually right now if you wanted to. You should have access already. I'm going to double check that. So we are excited to announce that to our Explorer members.
A pretty exciting evolution, right? If you happen to miss one of these calls live, you'll be able to see it in your app, going up onto these sections of the community site. We want you to have full access and get the full value out of this as an Explorer member. Navigator members get additional content and additional opportunities within us as well. But this should give you the ability to hear these calls live and or hear them in kind of a podcast format. You want to do this, you want to get used to doing this, and you want to get up into the community site and do one of these tours, one of these getting full value tours that Maria is doing as well, so that you can fully understand the full value of what we're bringing to you here every Friday morning. So,
That's right. That's how members are winning. All right, Brian, that's it for me. Now
all
for the
right,
market update.
very quick this week, we had some data come out. Let me give you the short version of the data. Jobs are not doing great. Okay, we saw some improvement in rates this morning. We got about 4 ticks improvement in the 10-year this morning. The reality is that jobless claims hit a high for the last maybe month and a half at 231 jobless claims. The job openings came in well below forecast at 6.4 million, and layoffs are coming in materially above expectations. So you're getting the layoff numbers this week were the highest layoff numbers we've seen since 2008. Think of that, right? The beginning of the Great Recession, right? In the process. So what's happening in the jobs market? People aren't hiring. There's fewer job openings. Unemployment is expected to go up here when we get the number next Wednesday. There's a lot going on there. Here's the good news out of this. You never want to say there's good news about a poor job market. The good news is it should be positive for interest rates, right, in the process. And for the Fed going forward, we have a new Fed chairman coming in here in a couple of months. This should be a positive to at least, if nothing else, keep rates from going up. We have a complicating problem, folks, that I'm just going to alert you to, and we'll begin to put some slides in as we go forward. Tracy, if you're listening, we want to find one of the big problems going on in our interest rates and in inflation is that in the last year, and I'm not making a political comment here, but since President Trump was inaugurated, the US dollar has devalued in excess of 10%. What does that mean? That means that the purchasing power of the American consumer has dropped 10% during that period of time for goods that are being imported. If you travel outside the country, you're going to find that things feel more expensive because foreign currencies are doing better than the American dollar. And that's going to begin to put pressure on inflation. As a result, it's a little bit why you're seeing oil prices kick back up a little bit. You'll see that here in a second in the data. So we'll begin to focus on that. Next week, you're going to get on Wednesday, you're going to get the normal non-farm payroll number and the unemployment rate and an inflation measure all next Wednesday. So Wednesday's going to be a big day. Tuesday, you're going to get retail sales, also a market mover. Then you're going to get another inflation number on Friday morning next week as well. So next week is going to be really data heavy. I'm not Barry Habib. I'm not going to tell you to lock, not lock, but I can tell you this. If you have customers who are right on the edge in your pipeline, next week should be if those unemployment numbers come in low on the job non-farm payrolls or an increase in unemployment and we get tame inflation, you could see a little bit of an improvement in rates next week, but the numbers could come in a variety of different ways. So let's be careful on those. The 10-year Treasury, as I mentioned, we got a little improvement here towards the end of the week. We're down at just over 424, I think, somewhere in there before I just got on the call. We had seen it pop back up, so we're getting a little relief owing to these JOLTS numbers. This is the job openings numbers came in really light. ADP came in with a report that showed that private sector job growth fell well short of expectations. And the U.S. Treasury maintained its issuance guidance for the coming quarters, meaning that they're not going to increase with additional bonds being sold into the market. All of that gave us a little bit of relief. As a result, however, we actually saw 30-year fixed interest rates tick up marginally, just a hair this week, owing to the fact that we saw early in the week bonds were actually up almost at 428, 429. We got a little relief here this morning. Good news is that the spread between 30-year fixed interest rates and the 10-year Treasury continue their downhill slide. We're at 183, give or take, somewhere in that range, 183 basis points between the 10-year Treasury and mortgage rates. As bond buyers get more and more comfortable, hopefully, with a variety of, I'll call them geopolitical issues that are floating around the globe, to the degree that this spread, which think of it as a risk spread for bond buyers, as the risk spread continues to come in and gets down into the 170, 175, even 160 level, we could see the 10-year Treasury trade flat and still see mortgage rates come down. And we don't have to come down a lot. If we came down an eighth from where we are in rates, you'd have a five handle at the beginning of the 30-year fixed interest rates. That could be very positive as we move into the selling season this spring. Michigan consumer sentiment continues to improve a little bit. As a result, however, buyers are not feeling great around job openings, right? If you're coming out of college right now looking for a new job, you're going to find not a lot of hiring going on, and you're going to find a lot of layoffs going on. So I feel bad for those kids coming out. Initial jobless claims, as you can see, jumped up a lot this week compared to the last 4 or 5 weeks. I don't want to get too focused on one week. ISM Manufacturing, the Purchasing Manager Index came in really strong, which means that companies are out there buying goods and services. A lot of this is tied to this immense boom going on in data centers. There's literally trillions of dollars being committed to building out data centers. Elon Musk is talking about building a data center on the moon, right? Think about that. How expensive is that? There's an immense capital rush into data centers, which is driving a lot of this purchasing going on. So again, it's really located in one primary industry. You're not seeing it in other industries. The Services Purchasing Manager Index, which is where we live, the mortgage business lives in the services side, continues to invest and continues to be stronger than expectations. That said, both purchase apps and refi apps were down for the week, owing to the fact that rates had ticked up late last week and into the early part of this week. You see a little reduction right away, right? It gives us a little sense of how sensitive refinances are in that process. WTI Texas crude oil prices, which we've been tracking, you can see they were dropping precipitously through the second half of 2025. And now in the first part of 2026, you're seeing oil prices tick back up, which is bad for inflation. Bad for inflation, good for the oil companies, bad for inflation. It translates into gas prices, and oil is in virtually everything you buy, one way or another. And so oil prices are tipping up primarily as a function of the US dollar weakening in this process. So the reality is that we're getting a little geopolitical issue, we're getting the dollar weakening, we're getting a variety of things that could infect inflation here going forward. The TLDR update you'll get in the deck. Mortgage rates edged mostly higher, but remained stable for the week, keeping affordability workable for many buyers. With the labor market cooling gradually and inventory improving, buyers are seeing less competition and greater negotiating power. I would add that inventory in the real estate business is up pretty significantly across most markets. For those on the sidelines, the current window offers a favorable opportunity to act ahead of the typical spring demand pickup. If rates drop at all, you're going to see an increase in home prices, assuming that inventories remain stable to where they are now. Some takeaways. So a couple of things we saw this week. We saw, a new number north of 40 trillion in home equity out there. We saw interest rates, current mortgage interest rates for the first time in a long time. More than half of mortgages in America are north of 5%. Many are north of 6%. There's a real refi opportunity in here for those of you who are talking to your past customers. Remember, for the last 3 years, most customers have got a mortgage above 6.5. Consumer debt remains extremely high, and delinquency on credit cards, auto loans, home equity loans, student loans, you name it, and including FHA mortgages, are up at near record levels. There's a real opportunity for debt consolidation, cash out refis, other kinds of pieces that are out there in your past customer data. Maria, do we have any questions from the first section?
No questions.
All right. I also gave you some additional data this week to take a look at again that you could disaggregate or use with your customers if you're a Navigator member. This is a composite of what makes up price changes since 2000. What's gotten more expensive and what's gotten less expensive over the last 24 years. So this kind of breaks out where inflation is coming from, where we're seeing deflation. Computer software, cell phones have actually gotten cheaper on an inflation adjusted basis. For those of you who buy clothing or maybe a little bit of a fashionista, you find that clothing has really become less expensive over time. But hospital services, medical, college tuition, childcare, medical care services, housing, obviously, all up over the last 24 years. This just gives you a little sense of what's creating that demand out there. I gave you a second slide, kind of just measuring the mortgage treasury spread over a much longer, the last year to give you a little sense of where we are. And you can see that in early 2026, we have dropped down well below the 2% level, where earlier last year, we were up nearly 300 basis points of a spread between the 10-year Treasury and 30-year fixed mortgage interest rates. Asset performance, just looking at the different sections of major stock indices gives you a little sense of where the value has been created in the stock market, in gold, in oil, you name it. It gives you a little sense of where all of these asset classes have traded, if for those of you who may be investing in a variety of different asset classes. And then this is the homeowner equity position, right? Gives you a little sense of the amount of equity in housing in America by percentages of where people are today. There's immense equity out there and immense opportunity. Here's the breakdown on mortgages at different interest rates today. Above, there's 20, I'm sorry, greater than 20% or above 6%, up sharply from 2022. The short version here is that if you look at the segment of 6% mortgage rates existing today, you have nearly 20% of mortgages. There's about 11 to 12 trillion dollars of outstanding mortgages. So if you have 20% of that number, 20% of 12 trillion is 2.5 trillion of mortgages that are well north of 6% in your past customer base. If you're not working on that opportunity, I will assure you, whoever servicing that loan is, and it's a missed opportunity for you guys that's out there. Any questions, Maria?
Sorry,
I'll
I
take
couldn't go
that.
off mute. Nope, no questions.
Okay. A little AI fluency, and this is around this superhuman LO concept that you're going to hear a lot more from me going forward. I gave you the ultimate Chat GPT 5.2 guide that you can download and take a look at and see what's going on in the marketplace. How to use Copilot. So those of you who are a Microsoft user in Outlook or any of your Microsoft pieces, whether it's PowerPoint, whether it's Excel, in Word, all the different prompts that function in Copilot. Copilot is really powered by ChatGPT. It's a relationship between Microsoft and ChatGPT. And then three roles of every leader should understand around AI: traditional AI, generative AI, and agentic AI. We're going to try to do a lot more around educating people in this section. And you're going to see in our community site, you'll soon see a superhuman LO section of the community site for the weekly roadmap that you're going to want to have access to, where we're going to give you a ton of these pieces, including pre-written prompts to be able to use, whether it's chat, whether it's Perplexity, whether it's Claude, whether it's Copilot in Microsoft. We're going to build out an entire knowledge section, and we're going to be bringing more and more speakers on to the weekly roadmap of not only about AI, but specifically how to use AI in the mortgage space as an originator to make yourself more productive. The top 6 AI models ranked for what topics and the key features, the pros and cons, new updates that have come out in each of these pieces as well. Um, Personal opportunities, 10 habits that vastly improved my life. This is more on Matt Gray. This guy does some unbelievably positive stuff. And again, here at the Weekly Roadmap, what we try to do is consolidate this kind of knowledge and make it available to you. 10 ways you scream confidence without making a peep, right? How to be seen as more of a confident player from Shannon Smith. Maria, before I introduce Cindy, any other questions or comments in the section that I should respond to?
I don't think so, Brian. I think we're good.
Great. All right. Cindy Ertman. Cindy is a nationally recognized mortgage industry leader, speaker. She has run big organizations, been head of production, been a great originator, but spends most of her time now making originators more productive as a coach throughout the mortgage industry. We've had Cindy on, I think, once before. She's a returning champion. Excited to have her back. Cindy and I were just chatting backstage that we live about 30 minutes apart here on the beach side of California. And I've got to get up to her spot on the beach and take her to dinner. Maria and I need to thank her for all of her help and work in the weekly roadmap. But we're ecstatic to have her on today. We're going to have in the chat section links to Cindy's coaching capability. For those of you who might be interested in reaching out to Cindy, I would encourage you to do so. Cindy, good morning. Welcome. I'm going to take the deck
Well,
down here so we can see you. A little bigger. There we are.
Good morning. It's so great to be here with you.
Good morning. I want to get right into it, Cindy, this morning to get maximum amount of time for you. You shared with me that one of the biggest challenges your coaching clients are facing right now is that many of their realtor partners have essentially aged out. And I don't know if that's a politically correct term, but given that I'm a 70-year-old guy, a couple of months ago, I understand the concept of aged out really well. As people have either left the business or doing less transactions annually. So to increase production, they need to find new ways to build partnerships. So let me just throw out a stat that some of my audience have heard from me before. Last year, the top 10% of realtors in America, and there's about 2.5 million realtors in the United States. So the top 10%, about 250,000 of them, accounted for 87% of all the sales in America.
Wow,
And
that's
that
incredible.
consolidation is accelerating. It's accelerating to the top. So if you're calling on realtors who maybe have been great referral partners for you for the last 10 or 20 years, many of them, as this commission thing went through in the last 18 months, the consolidation, the use of technology, social media, many of those agents are checking out. The ones at the top often have these big teams, have really invested in their business, and they are dominating the real estate space. So if you feel like an agent that you've worked with isn't really giving you the kind of production that they used to give you, let me give you a hint. If they're on the bottom 60% of that 2.5 million, you know why you're not seeing any business? They don't have any sales. They're in that group that accounts for 10% of all sales, not 87% of all sales. And that's an issue. So, Cindy, speak to that a little bit on how you work with some of your coaching clients around how do I build new referral sources? How do I think about this?
No, it's a really big issue. And I was on some coaching sessions about 2 months ago. And anytime I start to see a theme, I realize it has to be addressed in a bigger way. And I started to see a theme from several of my coaching clients, and I mean some really big producers. And when a really big producer that's super successful is telling me, hey, I just went and met with a great team, had a great meeting, they come back, everyone's so busy and they're so in their business every single day, and they have no systems for follow up whatsoever. So, one, do you need to expand your partnerships? Everybody does right now. I mean, being in my business, I would say I had really solid, committed relationships from probably 20 high performance realtors in my market here in Manhattan Beach, California. Today, if I was back in origination, I'd want to double that number, or I'd want to be focused on the elite few. And so, one of the things that I have really helped my clients do is we built a system, a follow up system to train them on. So, systems make everything easier. Anything that's replicatable, I built a system around, and people's eyes glaze over when you talk about systems, but just really simple practices that not only help you conduct a more effective meeting, we'll talk about that, but also once you finish that meeting, what is your follow-up plan? And coming up with a very specific system about how you follow up. And if you have a defined plan and you've identified who on your team is going to help you execute to that plan, it really helps you build real relationship very quickly, because I believe wholeheartedly that early in my career, I discovered one thing. As I researched top performers in America, I started going, I don't need to redefine success, but what do they all have in common? At the end of the day, the one with the most friends wins. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. And AI is great, but it doesn't build relationships. So it's the combination of those two. But I want to give people real strategies and real, conversations to be had in scripting so that they can go in and build a relationship much more effectively and much more quickly.
That brings me to a point, Cindy. Look, I think a lot of, and I've had the good fortune in my career to have worked with in excess of 45,000 originators through all the companies that I've run
Right.
right through the process. One of the things I find that many loan officers believe that they're great at relationships, yet they struggle to build deep or a broad base of referral partners. Just speak to that a little bit, and maybe how you work with some of your coaching clients around that piece, right? To kind of translate that sense that, yeah, everybody likes me. I'm Mr. Relationship. Yet I have a very narrow referral base that, God forbid, one of those realtors goes away, either marriage, divorce, death, God, whatever, gets out of the business. And a third of their business goes away because they have this really narrow set of referral partners. It's something that as I ran originators through the years, I used to coach them. It's great to have a few that are really deep, or if you have a home builder where you're getting a ton of volume,
Right.
you have to be prospecting new customers, new referral partners, I think, every day, every week of your life, right?
100%. And
So,
I
so
had an
speak to
hour.
that. Speak to that a little bit.
Well, even in my biggest years, my biggest year was just under 230 million in personal production. My whole team knew. Like I had a sign on the outside of my door that went on at 10 o'clock in the morning to 11, and it was do not disturb. And that was my on time for my business because that's what keeps, this from happening in your business is to be consistently prospecting and building relationships and being in front of your people. So I built systems around all of it about how to stay in touch with our past clients that I teach today with scripting and questions to ask to make those communications count. The way that I conduct a first meeting. Now, I mean, I spent years, Brian, studying human behavior and not just learning all the, flashy things that we can sign up for, but really looking at how do we really connect with people around bringing value. We talk about in our industry, we've got to bring value to our referral partners, but then I get the question like, how do you really do that? So I put together a training called Connection to Conversion. And I tweaked it, I tested it myself over and over and over until I felt like I had this kind of magic formula, if you will. And my first meetings were very different than anyone I knew. And the response that I got from agents in those meetings was kind of life changing because what I realized, and it takes a bit for some of my clients to wrap their arms around it because it's a different way of showing up in the world because it's not about you. So my 40 questions to ask a realtor, if you have the opportunity to have lunch with them, is a system. And it starts with asking very simple business questions that get them to open up about things they're very comfortable talking about. How long have you been in business? When did you get into the real estate market? What were you doing prior? Because there's always a story there, like mortgage. No one like goes to college to be a realtor typically. So it's a sequential order of questions that you ask them to open up about their business life, and they're very comfortable in that arena. And then we transition into a list of questions regarding their personal journey. And so once you practice it a little bit, it's like anything else, you've got to practice it and get comfortable. It's a very authentic flow of questions. And one of the things that's so incredible is when I get to the end of my questioning, now they're open. We've transitioned, and not one thing that I say. Now, if they ask me a question, I will respond to it, Brian, but not one thing I say is about me. The entire conversation is reflected back about them. I want them to open. I want to learn about who they are.
So do you have a concept that you speak to about, for most originators, that first meeting is a wasted opportunity
100%.
because they tend to come in, at least my perspective, they tend to come in and they are feature vomiting, right? I got the best rates, I'm the fastest, I'm the tallest, I'm the best looking, I'm a good dancer, whatever, right? To that agent, as opposed to listening. And what I just heard you say equates to being a professional. And think about other professions. If you went to a doctor because your shoulder hurt, and the doctor came in and didn't ask you a thing, didn't really diagnose anything, and just started prescribing the fix, it'd be malpractice. It would be malpractice. Yet I see originators delivering malpractice every day, sending a link to a customer with a rate quote without talking to the customer and asking them a lot of questions. And you're talking about referral partners, business to business, being a pro, a true pro in this business is about diagnosing the other person and having enough humility to not talk about yourself, talk about them and how you're going to help them in the process, right? And having that systematic process to it. Speak a little more about that because I think that's a really important
Well,
yet lost art in our business.
I agree. And I mean, I'm using a different form of it now when I'm meeting with CEOs and presidents of mortgage banks and brokerage firms, and it's the same concept. I may only have 30 minutes to meet a complete stranger on Zoom. And so I started formulating a plan for how to build a relationship when I'm in those sort of situations and connect on a deeper level. And it's amazing with a little bit of tweaking to what we're doing. But when I teach connection to conversion, I think the thing is it's difficult is I'm willing to ask questions that maybe other people aren't willing to ask. And so I'm going to share my two final questions at the end of that process when I'm in a first meeting. And it's where the gold is, because keep in mind, I've started with business questions that I have a series of, and then I've transitioned to their personal life. And it's very organic and very comfortable. And then at the end, my two final questions are, Brian, tell me what's one of the biggest wins you've ever had in your life or your business. And they're not expecting a question like that at a meeting with a mortgage professional, and they have to think about it. And some of them might answer with a business win, and some might answer with a personal win, but it opens up a different part of them. You transition, it sounds so cliche to say, you got to go in from your heart and not your head. But look, I operated from this for way too many years. And when I finally transitioned into understanding what really builds relationship, I got humble, I got vulnerable, I made it all about them. I poured into them, I created value for my partners, and they were loyal as any partnerships could be. But that was by design. So, my last question that I ask them is, what's the biggest challenge you've ever had to overcome? And I can tell you the responses that I've got from people, because if I ask that question right out of the gate, it wouldn't work.
Right. They wouldn't open up.
You have to create trust. But the very first time I tested this was a woman that I stalked on Facebook for about 45 days, because that's what I wanted her
By
to.
the way, stalking is a perfectly appropriate sales technique.
So I stalked her by checking her posts on Facebook 2 to 3 times a week, and I
You
engaged
mean you had intelligence about that person before you met with them?
100%.
There's a concept.
So I kind of had a sense for her style, for her personality, for the way she showed up. I checked out her website. 45 days later, because I started commenting, not just liking, commenting, engaging, asking an open-ended question. So she'd have to respond. 45 days in, she ran an office here in Manhattan Beach with 250 agents, and I'd never met her. I'd heard of her name and I figured she'd heard of me too, but we had never met. So I called her, just cold called, and I said, "Hey, as you can tell, I've been stalking you on Facebook for the last 45 days." I said, "But you know what, Sherry? I really like who I see. I mean, I love your energy. I love how you show up in the world. You're really organic, you're really authentic, and you just strike me as my kind of people. I would love to learn a little bit more about you and your business. Would you be willing to grab lunch next week? I'd love to learn more about you." And she just said, "Sure, that would be great." And we went to lunch, and I had my connection to conversion. That's the way I conducted the meetings. Second thing that I do, I just want to point this out because this is keyly important to success. When I go into a meeting, any meeting, I do it today, I did it my entire mortgage career. Go into that meeting and with an outcome you want to have created. Most people just go into the meeting, they have a great meeting, they connect, they have fun, but there's no purpose. Like they don't have an outcome they want to create. So I go in with an intentional outcome. 90% of the time, even today, what I want as that outcome is a secondary meeting. I want to get them so intrigued in that conversation with me that they want to spend more time with me. I want to create value at a different level. I want them to say yes to a second meeting. And the best time to get them to say yes is when you're in the first meeting, look at them eye to eye. I don't care if you're on Zoom or if you're face to face with them. But if I've just, had lunch with you for the last hour or hour and a half, and I've asked you these really deep questions, and I say to you, "You know what, Brian? I think it'd be really amazing. One thing I love to do with some of my top performing realtor partners is to meet with them and discuss their marketing strategy. Or I might say, I'd love to meet with you and discuss your goals for 2026 because I love helping my realtors
Or your
become
follow-up strategy, or anything.
I mean, you can pick what's your special sauce, but I'd love to meet with you in a couple of weeks just over coffee for 30 minutes because I'd love to learn a little bit more, go deeper with your business. I've got some questions I'd like to ask you because I'm really committed to my partners that I help you be more successful. Would you be open to that?" I got 100%. No one ever told me no.
Here's the part that you didn't ask that as I'm listening to you now. Can I have your next loan? Right?
And never,
Because
ever,
you
ever.
don't have the right yet to ask.
100%. You have not built a relationship yet. And most people just go at this way too soon. And so I just want to share quickly that meeting with Sherry, when I asked her that question about the most difficult thing she's ever had to overcome, she got tears in her eyes. And I remember it like yesterday, and I'm sure she does too. I had my phone away. We were locked in eyes, sitting across the table from each other at this restaurant. And she got tears in her eyes and she said, the most difficult thing I ever had to overcome is I lost my son when he was 2 weeks old.
Oh my God.
And I'm a mom of three kids. So
Where do you go from there, right?
I got extremely emotional myself and my eyes welled up and I looked at her. Of course, it was many years ago. And I said, do you mind me asking what happened? And she told me that they had found out in utero that her son had a heart problem. They didn't really know till he was born. They didn't know if he would survive, but he died 2 weeks after birth. And so we had a really connected personal moment over that story, being moms. And then she went on to tell me that she later adopted a son. And, like obviously this was 25 years ago. So, but we had a moment. And when we stood up from that meeting, she walked over to me and gave me a hug. And she said, I feel like I just met my new best friend. And then before I even had a chance to get her my handwritten thank you note, which was part of my follow-up plan, I received one from her. And 30 days later, she invited me to her home Christmas party with her 30 top agents and invited me to all of them. And that is because I focused on building a real relationship with someone. And I mean, I'm still friends with her today, but the reality is, this is how I like to do business. And it is a learned skill. I taught myself how to do this. And now I give other clients of ours the roadmap to be able to connect with people at a deeper level. And I've taught 55-year-old men, that are more like accountants, how to utilize this, and it changes the game.
Yeah. Look, I just have to emphasize this to the audience because I think this has been a point of emphasis for me for a long time. You had a process, you thought about it ahead of time, you had a plan when you went into that meeting, you did some research and had intel, but you didn't know that story until you sat down with her. And that's the kind of approach, professional. That's the word I want to put on it. You took a professional approach to your business as opposed to, by the way, I got this product, not even knowing this human being. And what you had at the end of that lunch, and I'm putting words in your mouth, is you had two humans who made a connection.
100%.
You know,
And no one, and they,
the best agents I ever worked with as an originator, and I used to close 1,000 loans a year. 1983, I was doing that. I still get Christmas cards, notes about their kids, college, marriage, all those kinds of things. Human connection first, professional connection second, the right to offer your services and knowledge into their business. All that came after the human connection. That's the diff.
does. And that I find in the second meeting, if I've created this sense of I care about you and I want to bring value to you and I'm totally focused on you, I have a process in that second meeting. I call it my if when strategy. But the reality is my goal is to have them self-select to work with me. I really rarely ever ask, I never ever ask, will you give me your next deal? That never came out of my mouth in the history of my career. But I wanted, I was just thinking about another time that I did connection to conversion that was so profound for me is I was meeting with a guy. He was kind of a tough cookie. He didn't want to meet for lunch. I had to kind of beg and I said, just give me 1 hour of your time. And 2 hours later, I had to excuse myself because I had a meeting, which cracks me up. And he was from New York and he was kind of gruff and
Easy, easy. I'm a New Yorker.
okay. But at the end of the meeting, it was crazy. Brian, I never said one word about me, about my company, about my products, about my service, about what I could do for
Yeah.
him. I didn't make any reference to it in the entire luncheon. And at the end, he goes, Cindy, I wasn't going to mention this to you. But he said, I'm launching my own real estate company. I already have 10 agents signed. I'm launching it in 30 days. And I don't want an in-house relationship. I just want a preferred lender. Would you be open to being our preferred lender?
Yeah,
He
no.
never said a word about my business. And he asked me to be his preferred lender. And that's the power of learning the ability to connect on a deeper level and create value for people.
Look, this is a little more gruff way to say it, but the guy who taught me how to be an originator in the early 80s, Mike Legault, he used to tell me all the time, this is a guy who used to close 800 loans a year in Appleton, Wisconsin, in the Fox Valley. There aren't 800,000 people there, right? And his deal was add value, build a relationship, add value, get close enough to set the hook and drag them into you, right? But the whole thing was add value first, understand the human first, and they will open up to you all of the opportunities. When I do a consulting deal in my consulting business, I get their financials, their balance sheet, their financials, their reports, their KPIs. I look at it. Now I have 10 things I can help you with. It's not open up, blah, here's all the things I can do for you, right? And that my emphasis to the audience today. This doesn't require technology. This doesn't require to learn some new really whiz bang cool chat GPT prompt, although I think you could do that for research.
100%.
This is you, human to human. You have these abilities. And what I really hear in you, Cindy, and I hear this from all the top producers that come on the weekly roadmap, they have a process that works. They've refined it over time. It's human to human, and they leave nothing to chance. They think through it and then deliver human to human, build that relationship, then everything is possible. That's the best part of your story to me, which is you don't have to learn how to leap tall buildings in a single bound. You have to learn how to be a human, right?
Well, and then having a system that's follow up once you leave that
Yes,
meeting.
yes, of
That's one
course.
of my big time clients who's $150 million a year producer. And he said he just met with one of the top producing teams in his market in Florida. And he said, I'm on the call with him a couple weeks ago. And he goes, Cindy, it's 2 weeks later. And I've done nothing in terms of follow up.
So speak to that a little bit. What are some of the habits? You coach some of the top performers in the industry. What are some of the habits they have to unlearn?
Well, they've got to unlearn control first and foremost. And it's probably one of the when people first come into our program, particularly high performers, that's probably the first thing is like they're so used to controlling the process because they're so afraid that if they leave it up to a team member, it's going to get screwed up. And at the end of the day, it might, but you're never going to get your people up to speed. I was just coaching one of my clients yesterday morning on this because she brought in a new LOA. So she has two now. And she's one, I mean, I got to give Shelly huge credit. I mean, she's up 98% in 6 months. That's huge growth. So she's leading a whole different team now than she was 6 months ago. So she brought on the new team member, and now the new team member, she's not trusting as much, right? And that's normal. But the reality is we've got to trust and we've got to let them fail and we've got to let go because we can't scale our business if we're stuck in the minutia of driving our files through the system. So that's number one is get the right team. I do huge training on how to build a high impact team and how to hire, who to hire. I'm a DISC profile master, so I'm passionate about helping people hire the right people, getting the roles and responsibilities defined, and setting the vision for what you're trying to create. But when I come back from a meeting, simple things like the first thing I do when I'm sitting in my car is I text that agent my contact information, however, my electronic card, however you want that agent to have your information, text it to them right after the meeting with a thank you note so that you're in their phone immediately. Go back to the office. I used to hand their card to my assistant, and we had a system. There was a handwritten thank you note that went out. It went into our CRM. It went into my Monday call list because I called 10 realtors every Monday. I didn't call 40, I called 10 because I wanted to make a bigger difference. I wanted to go deeper with people. I called 10 every Monday and 10 every Wednesday on my hour block. And
10 new, 10 existing, or a combination?
Monday, I had a list of 20 that were agents that know, like, and trusted me, or that at least knew me. And then I would call 10 every week. So I'd be touching base with them twice a month. It was a system. Very simple. I always knew who I was
System.
going to call.
System. Write that
Wednesday,
word down. System. A process.
Wednesday, I had a list of 20 that I wanted to build a relationship with. And then once I've had those meetings and I feel like I've connected and I've built some sort of relationship, I move them to the Monday group. So I feel like I've already, created some sort of relationship with them. But the reality, and then, one of my systems was on the 1st and the 15th of every month. I'm a fanatic and God love the people that train me right out of the gate, but they forced me into database management with me kicking and screaming. But I remember customizing Act way back in the day, and
Act. Wow.
I just became a database management junkie. And on the 1st and the 15th, it was in my calendar. No kidding, Brian, for 28 years, I sent an email that I wrote on the 1st and the 15th to all my past clients. And when I turned my business over to my production partner to launch my coaching company 13 years ago, I had 4,500 past clients that I communicated with twice a month with in many different fashions. And 30% of my business every single year was from my past clients. And my past client call script makes that time count. You're asking the questions about, has any of your life circumstance changed since we last talked? Talk to me about a lot of the loans we're doing right now are debt consolidation because even though people may have a 3% rate, a lot of people have racked up car payments, credit card debt, student loan debt. So we really help people get out of debt. So I'm asking the questions about, are you interested in creating wealth through real estate and buying additional investment property? We could create a strategy around that. And if you ask all the quality questions, you're opening up opportunities they would never call you for, right?
Correct.
So it's being super intentional. The word intentional, my entire company is based on making new and intentional choices to up level your life and your business. And we help people make new and intentional choices. And the reason Shelly's business is up 98% is because she started managing her team intentionally. She got out of most of her files. She has a system around her realtor partners now and her financial planners. She's got a pro, and she told me yesterday morning, she said, I've got more business coming in now than I even know what to do with. And I feel like I may have to turn off the faucet because I can't handle it. I go, these are good problems.
These are good. These are first world good
Really good
problems.
problems, right?
Right.
We'll help you get to the next level.
Cindy, really, really
Yeah,
quickly,
go ahead.
as I've gotten to know you a little bit, I think everybody has an ego, but what I don't see from you is ego forward, meaning, you know, in your view, how much does ego in some of your clients play a role in them being less successful, right? How to manage
Percent.
their ego and convey and be human, be vulnerable, and not be ego forward, for lack of a better term.
Well, in my high level mastermind group, Mortgage Mastermind Elite, in the very first call, I just launched my new group. One of the things, the first thing out of my mouth is check your ego at the door. There's no place for it. And it gets in people's way on for many levels. And I think ego keeps people from making decisions to do things that are really going to serve them in their business too, because they're so afraid of being rejected or not, being valued or but at the end of the day, I just look at it a little bit differently. Like I never did loans for money. I did loans because I loved helping serve people in such a big way. And I did realize that the more people I served, obviously the greater the economic return. And even in speaking and training and being a coach, it's an energy of being in service to the people that I'm able to serve. And one of my mantras every morning or a prayer, whatever you want to call it, is, help me be, you know, in greater service to more people each day. Like I want to serve people in a meaningful way because seeing people grow is why I get up in the morning. This business, it's not what I do, it's like who I am. It's in the pores of my being. Like I love this business to no end. We get to serve people and help people and change people's lives. And I just want to help more people understand that they can be a top producer. They can go into that next tier. And that's what's so fun for me, particularly in my high level group, because all of a sudden, 3 months in, you'll see this light bulb moment where they're like, I can really do this. And they start to see some success of trying, getting new tools, trying new conversations, having follow up plans, developing systems for client experience. And all of a sudden, collectively, they take baby steps and the light bulb goes off. And all of a sudden, like Shelly, business is flying in the door. Tom Couture in 2019 and 2020 went from 38 million to 58 million to 132 million in 2 years because he just did things differently and the opportunity came to him. So I think the other thing I want to share, because I focus on this, instead of being in the push energy, which a lot of people are, and you can feel that it's all about energy. I study energy. I go to a Reiki master regularly. I was there Saturday. But the reality is, like, I'd rather be a walking invitation to serve people in a bigger way. And then people want to work with you, people want to come to you. It's a different energy. So, stepping into that higher vibrational state and being in an energetic state where people want to connect to you. They want to learn from you. They want to be in your presence. And that is something that you can develop. So I'm really passionate about how energy plays into our ability to build relationship as well.
Last thoughts you have? We have only a couple minutes left. We're actually kind of right up against the hour.
Okay.
I didn't want to stop you because I thought you were, what I love about your presentation, Cindy, again, this doesn't take investing in some new piece of technology, learning to leap tall buildings in a single bound, doing those kinds of things. This is about being human to human and then having the right, because you've built the relationship, to then ask for the opportunity in the process. And most people I watch, many people get that backwards, right? They start asking for the opportunity before they have the right, and it kills a lot of potential great relationships that they have, identified. Any last thoughts? And I'll just say to the audience, look, last year we brought 47 separate coaches and mind thinkers around this business onto the weekly roadmap. Folks like Cindy Ertman, she was part of that 47 last year. We're ecstatic to have her back. I'm going to try to do my very best to bring her back some more
I love
to the
it.
degree that we can. We're trying to find ways to work together and to help this industry be better at what we do. If you're not a Navigator member, you should think about this in depth. To be able to come on and get 47 great coaches in a year's time, if your company isn't doing that for you, if your boss isn't doing that for you, you can come here to the weekly roadmap and get these. Cindy, last thoughts.
I just really believe in the industry today that everybody needs support and coaching. There's so many virtual people working that we don't have that same sort of in-office camaraderie that we used to have. And I hear it a lot. I feel like I'm on an island. I hear
Yep.
that
Yep.
constantly. And so that's where coaching, having somebody, whether it's me or whether it's another great coach that you bring on, but having coaching that can keep you on track. I have clients that I've coached now for 11, 12, and 13 years. And it's not that they even need it to go generate business, but it keeps them on track. They have a safe space to talk about their challenges, whether it be personal or business. And I say we coach the whole person. To have that level of support, I've had a coach for 40 years and I thrive on it. It keeps me on track. So I'm a huge fan that you find somebody, invest in yourself. It's paid back in spades. And if you're really serious about taking your business to the next level, invest in yourself because you're going up against people that are, and it
Couldn't
changes
agree
the
more. Look,
game.
we have the link to Cindy in the chat. I would just add to that as a commercial for the weekly roadmap. We try to gather these folks, bring them in, bring additional context and data, different ideas on personal development. That's what the weekly roadmap is about. You get to test drive and taste all of these different approaches. And to the degree I encourage you to reach out to Cindy, I couldn't agree with you more, Cindy. You know, Tom Brady had a coach, right? Michael Jordan had a coach, right? All of these great athletes and people who do great things in life tend to have a coach, a mentor, someone that helped them along the way. I've had the good fortune to be exposed to a lot of great coaches like Cindy, but I've had 6 great mentors in my career that came along at exactly the right time, took an interest in me, and taught me things, right? The key is to be smart enough to listen and
100%.
internalize what you're hearing. You can come here to the weekly roadmap every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and get this. If you're a Navigator member, you can get all the rest of the content, access to all the decks, all the videos, all those 47 coaches. I think you're out of your freaking mind if you're not a Navigator member for this, small investment to be able to have full access to it. But Cindy, first of all, unbelievable. I saw you get a little emotional when you were talking about your friend who you now have this lifelong relationship with about their child, right? That's human. That's the thing that connects. That's the thing. It's mom to mom. It's woman to woman. It's human to human. That's relationship selling. That's what it is. It's not feature rate. I'm the fastest. I'm the best. I got, my company's the best. All those kinds of things. That's
Yeah.
not what cuts it. That human emotion right there, that's the difference in what makes difference and what makes great originators with a process and a system and having the discipline to work the system. That's it. That's it. Do you have any last thoughts, Cindy? I know we're over a little over time, but first, I can't thank you enough for telling
Well, I'm
your
super
story.
grateful to be here, and I'm such a huge fan of what you're doing. As you know, Brian, I want to support you in any way I can. I think Weekly Roadmap is a huge benefit for loan officers, for leaders in America today, without question. And I know Maria put it in to schedule a strategy call. That's not just a sales call. You know, that is really there. It's a coaching session to really dive into what your challenges really are. And the reality is it's a no pressure sales call. That's just not how we operate. So I encourage people to reach out to get help and support. And I encourage people to sign up for Weekly Roadmap because I really believe in what you're doing. And it's why I'm so committed to help you make this more successful because I really believe in what you're doing, Brian. And you know, you're kind of like the godfather of lending in my eyes, and I'm so grateful that we formed a relationship. And that's what this business is having people that help support each other, you know, and the more that we tap into that level of connection, the more amazing relationships we can build and the more successful we become. So thank you for
Again,
the opportunity.
thank you for being on today. Thank you for all the times and all the help you've given me, and we look forward to having you back soon. Cindy's contacts are in the chat. Can't thank you enough. I wish everybody a great weekend. We'll see you on the road. Take
Thank
care, Cindy.
you.
Thank you very much.